So welcome everybody. This is the third of the Africa Ahead Mukfin videos that we've done, where we've done roundtables. Today's topic is skills across the African insurance industry. And our headline is Time for a Rethink. How does the African insurance market manage skills and capacity? So we are discussing one of the greatest challenges facing the African insurance market in 2024, skills and capacity. And we're going to be looking at the way that the insurance market can attract more young people, but at the same time retain the wisdom and experience of its older workforce. So Simba, if I may, as our host, hand over to you and just to introduce the topic a little bit, and then we will start our conversation. Simba.
Thank you, Liz. And I think the topic is quite critical and important, considering globally what is happening at the moment, which I think puts Africa at the back foot in terms of the skills issue. If you notice, I think the main direction of things is that there is quite a huge movement of skilled labor from the African continent to the first world, which is natural because of the remuneration scales or the compensation scales, which are much better in the first world. That said, I think I should acknowledge that the skill shortage is not isolated to Africa. It's a worldwide problem, which I think other continents probably have better ways to deal with. As the African continent, and in particular the insurance industry, we are so exposed because of the peculiar nature of the insurance industry. It requires specific skills. It requires certain specific base knowledge in order for people to function in the insurance industry. One of the major drivers of skills shortage at the moment is definitely the rapid change in technology, rapid change in methods, rapid change in everything that you would consider necessary to do business. Today, everything keeps changing, and therefore you will find that the skills that are required now, the skills that are required more, are constantly changing, and hence part of the reason why we are so much caught up with this problem of skills shortage. The added dilemma in Africa, unfortunately, is that we face a skills shortage at the backdrop of a very high base of unemployed youth, which I think is somehow a paradox, but I think that's the discussion we need to have. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And actually, as you say that about the worldwide problem, I had a press release in just as we were preparing for this call from the UN, and they've been having a big Gen Z conference in Spain, bringing together 1,000 young people to talk about innovation and sustainability. And part of that is to get them engaged with becoming useful members of the workforce, and also for older people to learn from Gen Z and what's coming next. So Christine, maybe I can turn to you first and just ask you, from your experience, just how big a problem do you see this, and do you have any instant solutions as ZEPRI Academy?
Thanks a lot, Liz. I do agree with Simba that we are having a challenge with having the youth get into the insurance industry, and for different reasons. But from where I sit, primarily, it may be the mindset that insurance is an old profession, and our failure to adopt technology as rapidly kind of puts us off from the more tech-savvy Gen Z kind of generation that is looking for something that's a bit more upbeat. I do think there's different ways in which you can remedy this, and technological adoption is one of these. We do run an Insure Hub, ZEPRI and ZEPRI Academy, where we try and encourage as many young people within the tech space to develop products that are insurance friendly. So it's kind of hitting two birds with one stone. We're trying to push the needle on insurance penetration, and at the same time, we know that a key driver of this is technology. So how are we able to marry the two, particularly using the younger people who are more prone to using technology to be able to develop this? In addition to that, of course, we cannot ignore the fact that there's an element of traditional underwriting that's still taking place within our industry. And of course, for this to happen, there has to be a knowledge transfer from the older practitioners to the younger practitioners. And one of the key ways in terms of how that can be done is through training, which is of course what the Academy does. But over and above the structured training and courses that we do have within our individual spaces, I think there is need for there to be a transfer, particularly of the tacit skill that rests with the more senior and experienced professionals, whether it be in roundtable forums or more informal ways that engage the Gen Z so that they're more receptive to learn the skills that work within the space of underwriting. So I think it would be a brilliant way to marry the tech aspect that they are really is their key space, if I can call it that, and of course marry then the traditional aspect that rests a lot in more seasoned professionals if we're going to see better progress in terms of insurance in our market.
Thank you. Amos, before I come on to you, I'm just going to, because I know that you have a solution one solution in form of a game, but Crispen, can I come on to you and talk about the problem as Christine has the sort of the general, the sort of the scale of the problem as you see it, and any solutions or directions that you think might help?
Thank you, Liz. I think what is obvious that with the rapid changes that are happening, coming off AI, rapid changes that are happening in terms of the insurance industry, we do have this problem where we have a shortage of skills. And if you find that the demand for new skills that are coming through, you need people who have done data analytics, because data is also a big game, but you also need people with soft skills. But these are things that are being taken for granted. Insurance business is always is a risk averse, but it's a balance sheet business. You see it also again in the way how talent is being managed. In terms of looking at business strategy, people are very particular about business strategy. But when it comes to talent strategy, you don't see that intensity. But it is talent that delivers that strategy. So we have got gaps that we've seen. Like, for example, you talked about, even you gave an example of Shpangu, who is resigning, and they've given him a 2-year contract. What means that in that area, it speaks that we need, there's a knowledge gap, we need transfer. And most in the market, if you look at the local market, we've seen that most of the professionals are retiring, and we've that gap that even Christine has alluded to in terms of how then do we transfer the knowledge to that, and also how do we look into the future skills. So again, these are the issues that are grappling. But my main concern is that there is no intensity in terms of the talent strategy. How do we harness what we have? How do we upskill and renew the skills that the people have, so that there is continuity in the business? So those are some of the issues that I'm seeing, and basically my focus is that talent management must be given the priority deserved, because it defines how the business delivers or responds to the market needs. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Crispen. So before we sort of dived a little bit deeper into all of that, there's a lot of information there already. Amos, can you tell us a little bit about the initiative that you are overseeing at the moment, and why there is this need for education about insurance and just attracting people to the sector?
Okay, I hope you can hear me well. The approach we are trying to use is something we call gamification. So we've noticed that in the insurance sector, as under the bracket of financial products, most people do not understand it as a financial need. They don't see it together as banking. And insurance is actually like a cousin to banking. So we are trying to bring those two together. Even what we call mobile payments, which has grown a bit in Africa. So you'll find that people don't see them as together. They don't see banking and insurance as one thing. So we are trying to bring that now back to the society. So how can we do that in a way that is cost effective and it's also fun? So the approach you're using is through gamification, through a board game. So whereby people can play a game which simulates an insurance life cycle, and then over time the game will mature itself with the users, and they might learn a few things here and there, of what goes where and what goes where. I'll not go into the details, but basically it's to assist the users, especially from our target is to start from the smallest level all the way to consumers and also adults, so that they can also understand why do I need life insurance. If you go and ask people, like, people don't even understand why they need life insurance. People don't understand that they need insurance maybe for if you're doing a construction, or maybe if you're doing a business. People don't know even the levels of they don't know the levels of insurance that they need. So we need to create that culture of that insurance and banking and financial services as one entity. And then through that, slowly over time, people will start learning the need of having these products in their life. Yeah, thanks.
Thank you. That actually brings me very neatly to sort of my next question, and feel free, any of you, to answer this to start the conversation. But where does this problem actually start? Does it start, as Amos is saying, that with consumers who don't understand what insurance does and how it's useful to society? Does that create a problem in that people aren't attracted to the industry because they don't understand it from a personal perspective? And I was also going to ask whether insurers need to change their kind of recruitment practices a little bit more to make it more accessible and make it sound like a better industry. Are we a bit guilty of really recruiting amongst our own and not recruiting from a wider audience? So as I say, I don't mind who wants to start that conversation, but I would like to get all your views on where does this start? Where does the problem come from?
Liz, I can go first, and maybe let me give a bit of perspective in terms of my own experience. The first part being, as you know, at Mukfin, one of our key value drivers is training. So we are quite very much involved in training in insurance, in reinsurance, and other related skill sets in the insurance sector. And also we've got a separate company which focuses on accredited training, which provides certificates and qualifications in the insurance sector. Now, I'm mentioning that from an exposure point of view. One of the issues that we've noticed is related to accelerated technological expansion, related to also in Africa, rapid economic growth. You will find that on average, the rate of career acceleration for people, it has increased quite a lot, in the sense that it's now ordinary that you can find a 25-year-old, 27-year-old in a management position, or even some in executive levels. And yet, if you look, maybe roll back some years back, those are positions probably that were preserved for people well in their 40s, well into their mature lives. And therefore you find that there is a bit of acceleration, which unfortunately, before you can meet current needs, there's already a gap, because the person has to catch up onto the next one, and wherever they are living, there is new requirements that the new guys have to catch on. And so there is so much that an individual is expected to know and execute within a very short space of time, which in the old days, someone was expected to learn that over 20 years before you get promoted into a managerial or into an executive level. So that's one of the issues that I'm seeing, that it is there, it is what it is, and to a large extent it is very good, because that's one aspect that is bringing new ideas onto the platform. But we need to be able to be conscious about the challenges that it also brings, and try and see how do we also accelerate the learning and the training of the guys who are coming behind and taking over those roles that are left behind. The second issue to address with the Gen Z is addressing the reason or the purpose for working. And I think to a great extent, most of our youngsters, if you look at their background, they actually don't have the drive to stick to one job, because how sometimes you actually get to acquire the skills is following the same line, following the same channel of career. But these days, because most of our Gen Zs, they are coming from parents who have probably covered all basic needs, which in the older generation, a lot of our guys, older guys, we're fighting to get out of poverty, we're fighting to secure housing, we're fighting to get a secure space in the economic arena. Now, most of these youngsters are coming in. They are coming in behind parents who have solved those problems. And therefore, when they come in, it just takes a second for them to decide, you know what, I'm going back home. I don't want to work anymore. Or I want to shift my career and go try something else. They've got that latitude. But that's one of the drivers that we also need to look at, and as leaders in the industry, to ask ourselves, are we adequately addressing and motivating the youngsters who are coming up to say, there is a reason, there is a purpose, and probably there's a benefit for you to work, and we need to address that. Thank you.
Thank you. Crispen, do you want to come?
If I can come in, thank you, Liz. If I can come in to add to what Simba has said, I think he has touched on the issues that I also wanted to pick on. To say, I think the generations that are coming in have got a wide variety of choices. And I think the insurance industry has moved very fast in terms of exciting careers. If you look at other fintech companies in the industry, they've made their jobs so attractive that people are flocking to join there, because there is some proposition that you even see and read. It's very attractive, but insurance being insurance, it looks old, yet it is still a relevant aspect of our lives in terms of business. But that element that is not exciting, that doesn't also attract young people. Like what Simba said, people just come in for the sake of probably looking for a job. But what else? And what else, again, have we done as the insurance industry then to say, here are the youngsters coming in. How do we make their lives interesting? They are not bound by the old rules. They don't care even to say commitment, loyalty. To them, it's what's in for me. I do what I do. I go, you reward me, or you do this for me, you keep me, or I'll go to the next person. So these are some of the fundamentals that I think are still missing. That's why I was saying that we need intensity in terms of talent management and the retention strategy that we need to put through to say, how do you attract a 20-year-old just coming from university, and you keep them 2-3 years. So these are the challenges that we are facing in terms of competition with other sectors that have moved very fast in terms of being able and appealing to youngsters. And that's my comment on that. Thank you.
So as an HR professional, Crispen, do you feel that some of the issues actually rest with the recruitment process? Do you think that that maybe senior managers need to be to change their approach in terms of recruitment? I was having conversations with somebody earlier this week about diversity, and we were talking about the fact that there's probably, I mean, we do have 2 women on this call, which is a good start, but you know, there's probably not enough diversity in the African insurance market as it stands, and that includes diversity in all its forms. And we were discussing then about maybe it starts with the recruitment process, and I'm wondering whether you would agree with this issue as well, that the attracting the right talent starts with how you recruit.
Thank you, Liz. I think you have rightly touched on it, because if we want then to attract, we have to change the way we recruit. We should know where the skills are, where the youngsters are being, where they are coming from. We make deliberate intentions to go where they are and say, we want you. Let's have a plan, 1 or 2 years. If you come through to our place, these are things that we think we should offer you. But of course, in most cases, we wait for them to graduate, and then we pick maybe the loose ends. But my thing is that diversity is a key element, which is also going to talk about that. We need diversity, because diversity on its own, it brings a lot of things for the business, beneficial to the business. And that's a key element. But in terms of recruiting, I think there is a need to totally define where we recruit if you want to attract talent. I think gone are the days, of course, where we sit 5 panel, we ask interview questions and everything. Yes, it's still a process that we are comfortable with, but we should find other ways of onboarding the youngsters. Gamification, like what Amos is saying, it has to be something that we deliberately think. But I'm sure 1 or 2 companies are already doing that in the insurance system. But it's just that you find that in certain companies, you find that they are older generation that think that things have to be done in a certain way. But as we are doing things in a certain way, we are lagging behind in attracting the talent that we want. Thank you.
I know, and I'm referring to a UK case, but there was a company that called Gallagher's who they take on 16-year-olds, they have, or even 14-year-olds, and they work for the company during the school holidays. And then when they go to college and everything, they don't go to college, they actually join Gallagher's and get trained internally and come out with kind of qualifications that they might have achieved through university. And they have some phenomenal retention rate from those early starters at the age of 14. They have something like 98% retention rate of those people staying with them and growing with them, working with them, and then coming into the business. And I suppose, Christine, that comes over to you, doesn't it, on the training side? How do you make it exciting for those youngsters and then give them a career path that they can't afford to leave? They just want to stay with you.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Liz. And I do agree with what my colleagues have said. I think in as much as, yes, we are saying that we need to attract them into the industry, then once they're in, we cannot be attracting fresh talent and having them in a still environment. They will not stay, right? So it's a multiple of different factors that need to work together. So we need to be attracting the right talent early enough. I think a lot of the frustration as well is kind of like our onboarding or indoctrination into the insurance industry that may not be very standardized. I know back in the day, for instance, of course, when there was still very minimal talent within the continent, a lot of our senior managers currently did go to the Swiss Re's and the Munich Re's for months on end to get skilled. But because now the skill is now resident, are they then paying it forward to their teams or to the younger people? I think that's a great starting point. However, even with the younger generation, the Gen Z, as they come into the industry, are we adopting technology at a fast enough rate that keeps it interesting enough to for them to even want to be in that space? Moses did allude to the banking industry, and yes, they are our cousins, but if you were to do a comparison, even in terms of their level of adoption of technology vis-a-vis the insurance industry, we are lagging significantly. We are constantly late adopters of technology, whether it's within our processing of underwriting of risk, or processing of claims, how we communicate, how we market ourselves. Right from the onset, we don't appear appealing to the kind of skill set we are trying to attract. So in as much as, yes, we could be saying that there is a skills gap, we also do have a responsibility to make ourselves appealing enough to be up to date and current with where the industry trends globally are heading into. In as far as skills development, again, of course, we are moving from your traditional brick and mortar ways of teaching. And I do love what Amos has been speaking to about gamification. Traditionally, even from an academy standpoint, our initial way of engaging was in person, but we've seen how limiting that can be. Since COVID came in, we've managed to reach higher numbers and larger segments of our clients that we would otherwise not have been able to reach simply by going online. How are we able to then capacitate different markets by having modules and interacting with them on online platforms, sharing case studies and engaging with them using tech in different ways that kind of helps us upskill, and not just upskill, but also, given the international nature of insurance, be able to keep them abreast of the practices that are going on in the region, so that you're not just focusing on what is within your docket, but you have a more global outset and perspective of the kind of risks we're handling. We're now speaking to climate change and other risks that involve a wider base. How are we being able to ensure that we're able to paint a picture that speaks to what's happening globally, even from in as much as we are local? So I think there's a lot of work that's been cut out.
Thank you. Amos, you've been mentioned a couple of times in dispatches there with your gamification. And as, dare I say, perhaps one of the younger members of this call, I'm just wondering, how were you attracted into the insurance sector? And would that gamification actually have encouraged you to get, to have joined maybe at an earlier stage? Tell us a little bit about your journey.
Okay, so my journey has been has been quite different over the years. So I've been trying to do some bit of surveys here and there. I like testing the market with actual questions. I meet people in the street or I ask people here and there. And one thing I came to notice is that when things are not fun, people kind of tend to avoid it. And I remember, Simba, you said something very important, and also Crispen, that insurance, people look at it as something very boring. And I think this is what gave me the idea of, like, before I even start telling somebody about this new product, this wonderful thing, let me make it not boring. So that's my approach first. So inside this product, we are working with also people of the actuarial division, because it's heavily dependent on the actuarial division, because they help us to be able to simulate the type of risks, the type of benefits and all that. So it's a conjunction of both the actuarial side of the insurance industry, so that they can help us to devise something that can be able to be palatable depending on the customer you are serving. So when it comes to kids, for example, from 0 to 14 years, we'll have to devise a different kind of a game with simple premiums, simple benefits, so that they can actually understand. And then as you move to older, as you mentioned, Crispen, to mature individuals, so let's say individuals who can now purchase the younger millennials, so let's say 21 to 35, we'll also devise another, maybe a bit more complex, to include more kind of insurance products. And then now to the later and the older people, from let's say 45 to 50 years, we'll now include now heavy kind of products where we have life insurance, critical illnesses and all that, so that we have something that is seamless and it's applicable for all ages. So with this kind of an approach, we'll be able to capture all kind of markets, and this kind of feedback will give us like a good understanding of what the appetite is in the market, because we don't know what the appetite is in the market until we try it in the first time. So I think that is the most important thing for now. Yes.
Absolutely. And actually, as you were speaking there, I was thinking that one of the things that perhaps we never do as insurers and in the insurance market is talk about the good things about being in the insurance market. We don't talk about the fact that you never know what your day is going to bring. No 2 days are exactly the same. You could be working across all kinds of different things, different territories, different products, and dealing with different clients in different ways. And also we get to travel a lot, don't we, as in the insurance sector? And that's something that young people love to do, but we never promote insurance as a job where you get to travel. And maybe there's something a little bit more that we could play around with there as a thought. But before we kind of think about maybe some more solutions, I'm also wondering about the kind of the different stages. So we've talked a little bit about the young people not being attracted in. Crispen, you've mentioned also not about retaining the experience at the back end of people's careers. And I'm wondering if we can explore that a little bit more about the that retention of the older workforce, but also importantly, the gap that appears to be in the middle, where we didn't have the recruitment 10, 15 years ago. So there's a lot of more senior people who are reaching retirement now, but then maybe there's a dearth of 40 to 55-year-olds to step up into those very senior roles. Is that something that worries you, or is that I'm not getting to the right point there? I don't know, Simba, you're nodding, so I'm hoping you're agreeing with me.
Liz, I was actually interested about the first point that you mentioned, and that's about us making the industry exciting. But as you were talking, I was actually thinking of the other dimension, that we probably are not doing enough to highlight the impact of insurance enough for people out there to appreciate that this industry is actually worthy saving in. For example, a lot of people are attracted to being soldiers, for example, because they appreciate the impact that a soldier will have for their country. Or people are attracted to being doctors or nurses or pilots because the impact is right in front of them. They feel the impact, they see the impact. And I think for the insurance sector, we do so much good, but I don't think we make enough noise about it. A lot of noise that we hear in the market is those 1 or 2 cases where there's a claim that has been repudiated or there's a contention, and then that tend to make the loudest noise in the market. But I think if we are to adopt a strategy where even we make as much noise about what claims have we settled, what businesses have come back to life because of an insurance claim, I think it can become so apparent even to people who are outside the industry, to the young ones, that this actually is an important industry to save because the impact of that industry is alive or is glaring in their life. That's the point I wanted to add.
Christine, you were nodding wisely through some of that. What you want to?
It was. I like what he's saying. We really do not make enough noise about what we do. We do not make noise about the kind of impact we have, because what we do is very impactful, not just to the economy, but actual lives, how they benefit from it. And I like, again, what Amos was talking about. We unfortunately do not start speaking about insurance until we're in adulthood, most unfortunately, at least in most of our markets. So the idea of capturing and speaking more about insurance in a fun way, in a way that is interesting to young kids and to the youth, is a great entry point in as far as trying to pitch insurance and make sure that from a granular level, from a very young level, they do understand insurance as much as they understand or hear banking or medicine or aviation, whatever the industry is. So how are we then able from a young age, a kid to wake up and tell you, when I grow up, I want to become an underwriter? They don't have that terminology. We need to find a way to include it into their curriculums from a very young age. The 101s of insurance for a grade 5 or a year 5 or a year 2 to a year 10 to a first year in university, it has to become part and parcel of their financial development in terms of financial curriculum, whatever they're learning. As they're learning banking, as they're learning everything else, insurance must be incorporated into that. So I really do.
Absolutely. And I think that's something that other markets realize too. It's not just an African problem, as we talked about at the beginning. It's a global problem, but I don't know if anybody's really found good solutions on it. Crispen, please come in.
Okay. Thank you. I think my point was on the other question that you posed in terms of the older generation that is in the insurance industry. But my experience, what I've seen in the insurance is that we leave it too late to start the transfer of skills. We totally forget that someone's going to retire and leave us. And usually when someone has got a year before they leave, that's when we realize that no, we need the skill. In most cases, that's when you see there's nothing wrong in terms of renewing extension, giving extensions, but it's okay. But what it tells us that people are not prepared are not preparing. Companies are not preparing for that transfer skills, so that we transfer the skills, we give these skills to the upcoming youngsters. So I think the other thing that I would probably say is that we need then to use the tools, identify high potential talent as early as possible. Of course, you can't promise him that after 5 years you will get to this position, but naturally, you know what happens, they cannot wait. They don't have that patience. But let's just keep them busy. Assign them somewhere if it's a common that has got other offices outside the country or whatever. Keep them busy so that we are preparing them to take over those positions. But what I've seen is that there's that lack of cohesion between the two. Usually, it's too late when we realize that we need to have those skills retained when someone is leaving. But I think the other solution probably is to say, how best can we identify talent at early age? Then we practically and deliberately develop that talent. But of course, the key is to keep them excited so that they remain in the system. I think Christine talked about other being excited to mimicry, whatever. Those kind of arrangements, they help. Though they look outdated, but I think they do help in terms of putting both in this industry. The basics are still important, but then how then do you make sure that we keep that talent? That was my comment. Thank you.
Absolutely. And I think one of the other things to factor in is quite an interesting dichotomy, isn't there, between I think relationships within your family. So a lot of insurers who become insurers actually because their mum or dad has worked in the industry and they've seen them have quite a good time and they understand it, and then they want to come in and they can see there's a good career path. But I was with the Association of Kenya's Brokers at one of their conferences, and they were talking about the weird thing that, you know, the parents or owners of mum and pop brokerages, for example, get really upset when they send their son to engineering university in Melbourne or in the US or Europe, and then they're surprised that they don't want to come back and run a business in Kenya with them. So we do seem to have a bit of a dilemma even within our own industry, where we do very good things in terms of attracting people from within, and then we completely reverse it by sending them off to be something completely different and investing heavily in that. Again, Simba, you're nodding there. Have you done that yourself?
I think that's the benefit of choice. It comes back to the dynamic that I was saying initially, that the first world, for example, they have the financial muscle to attract talent. Probably they paint their pastures as green, I don't know, but they do have the muscle to attract talent. And the benefit of the liberalization of economies is that talent flows where they think they'll get the highest benefit. And so I don't think you can necessarily stop that process. But I think what needs to happen in reverse is us putting mechanisms that even if the talent goes away at a younger age, which sometimes they should do, you only learn if you travel, you only learn if you get exposed. What are we doing also to make sure that when they've acquired the skills and they're getting bored in life, they want to settle back in their societies? Are we willing to receive them? Are we willing to accommodate them? Are we willing to let them exercise and practice what they've learned out there? They should be a win-win solution either way.
Christine, would you agree with that, or is your view slightly different?
I do agree. I wanted to speak first to the comment about how we end up teaching our kids different things and expect them to come in and take over. And I don't think that is just the preserve of the insurance industry. I think that's cuts across, right? Where we either, because they generally do not want to be in that space, or it could be that there isn't enough there's not enough knowledge for them to want to desire to get into that space as well. However, in speaking to what Simba has said, there is then a need for us to be able to make our own industries more attractive, right? How are we able to do that? Are we able to provide more opportunities? Are we able to make it easier for them to diversify what they can do and not do it as traditionally as we all have? I think there's workarounds in terms of how we can work on it.
Absolutely. Just for our last few minutes, if I may, I'm wondering about solutions. We've talked a lot about the problems, about the challenges. Can we talk a little bit about what might work as solutions? How do you see things going forward that maybe we could do differently, that actually might make a difference? Amos, maybe I should start off with you on that one. I mean, you've got your gamification plans, but what else do you see as the real solutions to some of these problems? Are there solutions?
First of all, apart from putting people into perspective with what is in the market currently, I believe the insurance industry in terms of underwriting should be a bit more, as you call it, the way banking is, should be a bit more proactive to what is current in the market. For example, the way premiums are being developed, I think that's the first issue. I believe we should, how do I put it this way? The way we calculate premiums, I believe that method should be revised. For me, that's number one. In terms of maybe the amount of data we collect, because we use previous models which are working in the past. We need to create new current models in the current state and also looking into the future state of the current population. That kind of modeling should be looked on first. Number two, the risk appetites have changed for people. People want to take different types of risks depending on their lives, and you'll find that not many people or not many insurance providers have the capacity to cover such. So for example, if maybe I have a different type of challenge, let's say in my current society, and then I go to my provider, the provider tells me I only have these 4 options. I only have fire, health, and this. I cannot cover you for this special kind of a premium. So it leaves me in a situation whereby I cannot go further until I find something that can be sort me out. So that's number 2. And then number 3, I believe in terms of the way we charge premiums and the way we charge our clients, we should do it in a piecemeal kind of a way. The way when banking started in the first place, they didn't have what you call I don't know what you call it, like piecemeal kind of payments. This was introduced kind of later on when they went to SMEs and micro banking. But now in the insurance sector, we only have micro insurance. And it kind of confusing when you tell somebody micro insurance is still insurance. So is it the same product, or is it a different product or a small product? So I think also in that kind of definition of terms, is it the same product you're getting in a small level, or is it broken down for the? So I think those kind of terminologies should be flattened out so that we have just something that is clear. Because I think the complexity of the insurance terminologies of the insurance contract even make it more difficult to even explain it to a normal user. Because they say if you can't explain it to a 3-year-old, then there's no business. So yeah, that's my few cents. Thanks.
Thank you. Christine, solutions, what do you think?
Yeah, I was having a conversation with somebody who told me exactly what Amos is talking about, and I was told your insurance terminologies are too much, right? So how are we able to simplify it? But in a nutshell, Liz, my solution would be innovation. Innovation in terms of how we do the business, that's internal to ourselves as an industry. How are we making our own processes easier and as simplified as possible? How are we innovating the products, whether they are existing products or new products, right? Because there's different ways in which we can scale our level of innovation for both. How are we able to tap into the 98% that is not insured? We're constantly saying that Africa's insurance penetration is at about 2%, but we have a whole 98% that we're not looking into. How are we able to then develop? I think there's a huge gap for us to be able to benefit from and develop that space in terms of innovative products that serve to those categories of people.
Thank you. Crispen, do you want to build on that conversation?
Yeah, true. I think some of the solutions, I think, to this issue of skills, I think the industry really needs to take a different approach in terms of talent management, in terms of sourcing and developing the talent. I think those things we need to be really deliberate about that, so that we are able to attract. And again, the key thing being retaining that talent, and of course to upskill and reskill the talent that we already have. It's also important that we don't forget about them. We need also to have that in terms of just upskilling and reskilling them, in terms of looking at the future capabilities, because it's a key aspect to say, if we identify this industry, what are the future capabilities that we want? And we start now to make sure that we are also talking the same language with other industries. I think those are the key things that I think are key in terms of managing the talent and the skills. Thank you.
And that's such a good point, isn't it? It's not just about attracting the talent, it's about retaining the talent. And how do you do that? Simba, do you have solutions around that? Do you have practices that you do within your own business, for example, that might, give others food for thought?
Yeah, I just want to pick up from where Chris left off. And I think that's a major concern in the insurance industry. Remember, we said the insurance industry is so peculiar in terms of skills, in terms of knowledge base. Now we have a group of people who practice in the industry, perfect their skills, and then at a later stage in life, they are supposed to let go and train the younger guys who are coming behind them. But the bigger question to ask is, if they do let go, then what for them? I would take it, practicing in the insurance industry is like being a pilot. All you know is, flying an aeroplane. If someone is to say, prepare not to fly an aeroplane anymore, what are you supposed to do? Are you supposed to leave the cockpit and let someone fly? When you leave the cockpit, what are you supposed to do with yourself? And I think that's a big question that the industry must address and must look at very seriously. One of the challenges that we have is those who are also reaching the exit of their active career path. What do they do with themselves? If you look at the industry, and this is worldwide, the barriers to practicing in the industry, for example, if you want to open up your own practice as an agent, as a broker, or as a consultant, whatever, the barriers are so huge, and it makes it very difficult for those guys who are in their retiring ages to make use of their skills. Even if they do want to transfer, they do not have the platforms to transfer those skills. So I think the regulations and the restrictions have to be looked at very seriously to say, how then do we allow those guys, once they are done with their career, to actually come back in the industry in another form and still be able to give back to the industry? And that tells to the licensing issues and access issues to opportunities. So I think that's the first part to address the skills issues, so that there is a willingness on those on those skilled guys or skilled people to be able to say, you know what, let me prepare the guys behind me, because when I'm leaving, I know where I'm going and I know how things are turning about, or I'm able to leave and set up a platform where I can actually come back to the industry and say, guys, this is what I'm doing now. Can you come on board? I've got skills to transfer. Then the second part, when you look at the younger generation, I think you are trying to address the question, if a kid is asked in school, what do you want to do when you grow up? Certainly at the moment, I'll be shocked if I hear someone saying, I want to be an insurance underwriter. I think actuaries, it's coming up with the younger generation that I want to be an actuary. But that would be the biggest question we have to answer ourselves. And that goes mostly into the image that the industry has got. The image goes with what people hear, what people see, what people feel. And I think we need to be able to address those issues regarding the insurance and insurance products. What does the general public feel about us? What does the general public see about us? And we are talking about technology now. Kids are all over the platforms. Are we making sure that wherever platforms that they are, insurance and insurance benefits are visible in one way or the other? What they hear, if people on social media, if people on the TV, if people on the radio, are they hearing enough about us? I think if we look at those two broad spectrums, I think somewhere there we'll find a solution.
Thank you very much. If I could just finish with a kind of yes-no question. Simba, you mentioned a lot there about older people and how they finish their careers. In a lot of African countries, I think maybe even in all African countries, I'm not sure, but retirement age is set at 60. In the UK, it's 67. Elsewhere in Europe, there's various other different categories. Do you think in Africa, one of the solutions for the insurance industry would be actually to relax that retirement moment and say, it's perfectly fine, you can keep working till you're 65? Do you think that would help, or actually would that put even more people off if they thought they'd got another extra 5 years of the industry? Yes, no. Simba, yes or no?
I would say no. I think what we need to relax is the other regulations and laws that allows them to practice back in the industry when they retire. I think there will be a broader scope for them to actually set up facilities, structures, or companies, whatever it is, consulting firms, to come back to the industry to practice. And one of the issues here is, for example, if you look at the issue of qualifications, if someone is in their 60s now, we should acknowledge that they do have experience and knowledge, but they might not be carrying the qualification that today, in today's assessment, you probably need them to have a certain qualification now. So if you look at other industries, for example, and I'm talking of South Africa, they've got what they call recognition of prior learning. They are able to give someone the benefit of what you have learned over these years, put it in a structured way and say, you would be deemed to be holding a qualification of this equivalence. And then that allows someone then to be able to bypass some of the qualification restrictions that are imposed if you want, for example, to start your own business.
Christine, as from a training perspective, does that sort of make sense to you? Or would you like to see people have longer at work?
I would have to agree with Simba on the premise that we also have to start encouraging knowledge sharing cultures within our organizations. All right. We have the older people, and we do understand that, like we've been saying, that insurance is highly technical and it is learned over time. Right. And as we've learned over time, I think there should be a mechanism within organizations and within the industry where the younger people are taught directly by these people, kind of like coaching or mentorship programs that are very deliberate to ensure that there are no gaps within the organization. It should actually go as far as that becoming a risk on the risk registers, that if so-and-so leaves, then we are exposed because there isn't a skill set left if individual X leaves the organization. So I think there must be a very deliberate way to coach and train young upcoming people. Like we've been saying, I think it's Crispen who was saying, how are we able to know that so-and-so is getting groomed into this and these positions? They may not be there yet. Yes, it looks like we're dangling a carrot, but at the end of the day, the severity, should that skill set not be present, then is not felt as much in the business. And also it's a benefit to the younger person in terms of the skill that they're able to acquire from that kind of mentorship. There are things we can only learn experientially, and particularly from people who have had that kind of experience. So how are we able to leverage and glean as much of that kind of knowledge as possible?
So Crispen then, yes or no, people should be allowed to work longer?
It's a question that I might be tempted to give both answers. But I think on the other side, yes, it's in a certain circumstances, yes, I would believe that if someone is still has got it, and we know that we have got a gap, why don't allow them 65, then we try to cover up for maybe 5 years or so. So my belief is that if someone has got it and we want to keep that skill and we want to do knowledge transfer, I'm happy to support that, because someone to go up to 65, because of course here and there we know the energy levels have gone down, but I'll go with what Chris has said, that this is probably these are the mentors or the coaches that I would want in the system. Then we make a deliberate policy that for the next 5 years, this is what you're going to be focusing on. Your role probably is to impart knowledge, and we have a plan that is there. So we keep you. As long as you are still relevant to what we want for the future capabilities, we still want that. That may take that. We should allow them at 65. Those we want to retain for specific transfer of certain skills, I would go for that.
So Amos,
I would go for that.
Last comment to you, yes or no? Does the idea of spending another 5 years in the industry appeal, or is it something that you think, no, there should be a hard stop at 60?
I'm kind of 50-50 on this, because both sides have benefits and both sides have disadvantages. So, but I'm leaning highly on the yes. The main reason why I'm leaning highly on the yes is because currently penetration is at 2% in Africa. And I believe if we might extend the time a bit more, we might have the capacity to impart knowledge to the incoming team. And also with the use of technology, we can also use technology to create kind of a knowledge library, so that as they leave and the new team is entering, even the ones who are also leaving, they add on to the knowledge library. And they continue like that until we can reach a point whereby we can say that we are technologically sufficient as the other fintech cousins, as our banking brothers. So, because I feel when banking, before it reached at this level, they, what is this guy name? Morgan, I'm forgetting. There's these old guys in the financial sector that they've kept the banking sector and the investment sector alive, because they've been there over time and they've been imparting knowledge to the financial sector to this point, actually, whereby now we have reached a point where we've moved from banking to mobile. So I think my answer will be yes. I would like if more and more old people can work for longer hours, but not in terms of doing the day-to-day affairs, but more into creating a knowledge base and more into mentorship. Yes.
Thank you very much. So Simba, we've had a great conversation there. Can I leave it to you to sign us off for the end of our hour's conversation and just sum up your view? And I also need to say thank you very much for enabling what's been a really interesting conversation. So thank you.
Thank you, Liz. More importantly, I would like to thank our panelists, Christine, Amos, Chris. Thank you for making time, firstly, to participate in this discussion, and more importantly, for also availing your views so that the whole world also knows what you think, and more importantly, proffer solutions out there. And I think this is one issue that we strongly believe as Mukfin. We do participate at our scale, and we keep improving. And part of what we are looking at is how can we play our part in a bigger way on the African continent in terms of addressing the skills shortage issue and addressing the skills gap that we face in the industry. I think it is a task and an imperative for every leader to keep on their risk register, as Christine said, that we should actually have those issues on our risk register to say, what are we doing about the risk of skills shortages, of new skills that are required, or of the older generation that are leaving, which will then leave a skills gap. Very important. So I think let's keep the discussion going, and hopefully we'll find good solutions for our markets. Thank you.
Thank you all very much. Thank you.